everybody. Here we go!
In case of emergency, the exits are here, anywhere. Keep your hands and arms inside the carpet. We...
Name is Hades, Lord of the Dead. Hi, how you doing? We dance, we kiss, we schmooze, we carry on, we go home happy. What do you say? Come on.
I only hope that we never lose sight of one thing, that it was all started by a mouse.
Welcome, Ohana, to the Disney Guys Uncensored. This is episode 58, recorded on April 26, 2020. We're your hosts, Drew and Bob. And on tonight's episode, we welcome two very special guests to the show to help us break down the Disney Vacation Club. So come, journey with us as we take a look at this often magical, sometimes confusing, but always a fun Disney timeshare opportunity. And let's head on over for a quick buzz tube.
Hey, Gord! Gord!
If I can just find...
Gord! Oh, there you are.
All right, guys, we have been busy lately in the social media world, so we have done two things recently. If you've been involved in our Patreon supports, we have been publishing quite a few things there as well. One specific thing that we have published there, Bob, why don't you tell us a little bit about your special article?
Yeah. I mean, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. It's the Behind the Music Powerline edition. It is completely fictional, but it's something that I put together. We were trying to do a Powerline episode for a pretty long time, I think, Drew.
Yeah.
But we never really figured out a way to do it where it would be convincing. So we decided to put it in a written word form. And if you guys out there are Patreons and patrons and you want to listen or read in this instance, let us know what you thought of it. And maybe we'll release it to the general public at some point in the future. But for now, it's going to stay a Patreon exclusive.
Absolutely. And the other thing we've been doing is about a week ago, we released, actually a couple of weeks ago, we started releasing this new thing. We're all stuck at home, and we wanted to give you guys a little bit of fun bonus episode every week. So we've been releasing these playlists, which are, each of us, the four of us, the hosts, have been trying to give you guys some type of fun playlist. Bob started out with not a playlist, a double feature soundtrack.
It was a playlist. It was a double feature. It was 30 songs long. Yes, that is
30
true.
songs of Bub's favorite Pixar music, followed up by Jordana did a top 10 breakdown of princess songs. And actually, just Saturday, I released my favorite top 15 villains playlist. So these are a great thing to put on, like the Google or Alexa while you're making dinner, or if you're in the car as well. But it's just fun.
Andrew, not that I'm one to question people on making an extended playlist, but where'd you go with the number 15 for your top Disney villain songs?
Well, Bob, I probably should have went 10, but like you, it's hard to narrow them down, so I had to cut it off somewhere, and 15 was the magic number.
Do you want to give us a preview? Anything on there that I should be looking for?
There's some oddballs. There's some cult classics out there. There's some favorites. Number one might be a shocker, but it might not be a shocker. You'll have to listen.
I was surprised it was number one.
You'll have to listen to find out. That's all I can say. And that is now live in all of our podcast feeds. So pretty much anywhere you can find us, that's there. It came out again Saturday as bonus episode number 6, top 15 villain playlist song. So make sure you go ahead over there and check it out.
And we're pretty sure that Tim is working on his Parks playlist as well. So
correct. So the next week or two, look for top songs. Who knows how many, Bob? Maybe it'll be like 18, 23.
It could be 18. They might be 24 hours long, knowing Disney park music. So
that's true.
Especially if he's playing the Epcot World Showcase loops. Those run routinely entirely too long. But
so that's everything going on social media. As always, continue to be watching. I am watching the Marvel films for the first time ever. I know, but I finally sat down and did it. I'm on, film number 16. And I've been doing about 2 to 3 minute reviews on YouTube to kind of give my opinion. So check those out. So that's a lot of stuff going on social media today. But I don't want to spend any more time because we have some amazing guests here that we want to talk about the DVC and some even other amazing things that they're going to bring to the table. So, Bob, let's head on over to the topic of the week.
Yeah, before we get into the steak and potatoes of Disney Vacation Club, let us take a second to introduce our guests. Today, they are Eric Weber and Bill Cefarazza. They are the proprietors of Disney Image Makers on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram, and the dynamic duo behind DizCase, a place where you can create your own phone case with one of their images or one of your own. But we're going to get to that in a little bit because they are also longtime members of Disney Vacation Club and are here to give us a hand breaking down the ins and outs of this alternative to booking a separate hotel reservation every time you vacation. Guys, thanks for being here tonight. How are you?
We're great. It's great to be here. Looking forward to this tonight.
Yeah, I mean, I know we're excited to have you. We've Andrew, we've kicked around the idea of a vacation episode for a while, so to get two guys that are experienced with it and hopefully can guide us a little bit on why we should or shouldn't maybe join the vacation club. We should throw out there, though, we're not trying to sell you anything tonight. We're just giving you information, and we're giving personal opinions on what we're looking at. So before we get going, though, I think we go with a quick overview. For those of you that don't know, the Disney Vacation Club is a vacation timeshare program owned and operated by Disney Vacation Development, Inc., a subsidiary of Disney Signature Experiences, which is a division of Disney Parks Experiences and Products, a segment of the Walt Disney Company. It allows buying a real estate interest into a Disney Vacation Club resort. Guys, that's a general bullet point, as it were, for this type of thing. Not to kind of interspeed questions with how we're explaining it, but real quick, for you guys, what was the thought process with it? Did you want to do it? How long were you thinking about doing it? Type of stuff like that.
Well, all right, I'll start. This is Bill, by the way, and I went to Disney World for the first time with my family in 2006, and it was during my wife's maternity leave, and my girls at the time were 3 and 1. And what we did, we spent a few days in the parks, and we noticed the kiosks as we were walking around, and we talked to one of the representatives, and they explained it to us quickly, and we fell in love with Walt Disney World on that trip. The girls loved it. We could see ourselves going, for years to come. And we went home and bought ours that, as soon as we got home from that vacation. Now, Eric has a much different story than that. So I was like on a whim, kind of just went into it, right away. But he has a little bit of different take on it.
So really quick, so you were sucker for the kiosk.
Well, not just the kiosk. I mean, we were in love with Disney World. I mean, we were like, we couldn't believe it. The girls loved it. We didn't realize how big it was, the scope of the whole property, just everything about it. You're overwhelmed the first time.
Oh, yeah.
And we could only see a fraction of it the first trip, and we knew this was a place we wanted to keep coming back to and bring our girls as they got older. So, we just said, let's just do this. This is a place we're going to be coming to, and the way they explained it, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure, it just seemed to make sense for us.
Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, my wife and I have a different story. We've been going to Disney since we were first together back before we got married. So we've been going there on our own forever. And then when we had kids, started taking our kids ever since they were infants. And we had, always seen the DVC. And, my feeling of it was always kind of, they're trying to sell this. They're trying to push this so hard. They have to be, they have to be making out, which means we're losing out. What's the catch, And then Bill bought in, and he started, telling me, hey, maybe you should do this. You should think about it. And my wife was always kind of trying to influence me there also. Maybe we should do it. And, it took me a long time to come around because, like I said, I was thinking, like, what is it? What's the catch? How am I losing out? How are they making out? There's no way that this could possibly benefit us if we buy in. But, Bill being... having basically the same size family as me, living in the same area, being in a very similar situation, it was working out great for him. So we decided to, look into it a little bit deeper. And that was back in the day when they actually had a DVC showcase at the mall, at the Roosevelt Field Mall on Long Island. So we were able to go there, and they had, that's I think when they were selling Bay Lake Tower. So they had a whole room mock-up there, and we went in and took a look at that, and we just kind of, based on Bill's influence and the fact that he just kind of went in years earlier. I still hadn't figured the numbers out yet at that point, but I decided, let's just go ahead and do it, and I'll figure out the numbers later.
Yeah, Eric's a little more analytical than I am. I kind of, run fast and loose and just do stuff, and he kind of likes to check the numbers, and it's actually good that we're like the yin and yang of that for the two of us. But yeah, I mean, I was saying to him, you go once, twice, 3 times a year sometimes, and this would really make sense for you, I think. And I think when you finally sat down and crunched the numbers, it did make sense, right?
Yeah.
And that's
absolutely. I'll go into the numbers later on if you want me to, but it's the numbers work out.
I think Andrew does want
if you know what to look for, if you know how to manage them, then they really work.
Yeah.
Absolutely, Eric. I'm a big numbers guy like that. I did the same thing. I was actually sitting down with my wife in the kitchen this morning. I was telling her, this Disney Vacation Club thing, blah 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 blah. It's so much a month, blah blah blah. Me and Bub are going on in front. But I think you hit the nail on the head of my favorite line. Bub's gonna get mad when I say this, but
oh god, here we go.
I always say on our podcast, I said Disney's in the business of making money. If something was done, it's because Disney makes money off of it. And I think you kind of started by saying that in the beginning there. But great stories there. It's funny to see always the stories on what drives to something like this decision. But let me ask this first question for you guys. So, Eric, where do you own properties or timeshare, rather?
We own at Animal Kingdom Launch. We bought in 2011. They were actually offering kind of a deal on it at the time. I mean, right now points are, they're closer to probably $170 a point. We bought when they were about $100 a point.
Oh, okay.
This is back in 2011. And the resort at that point was only 3 years old. So we got, 47 years worth of points at $100 a point. And, the numbers worked out at that point, which was great. But that's what they were pushing. That's what they were selling at that point because Bay Lake Tower hadn't been open yet. So they were trying to fill up all the Animal Kingdom slots at that point.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And what about you, Bill?
So when I went there in 2006, they had just finished Saratoga Springs Resort, and that's what they were selling. And, having just kind of like jumping in and not doing any research, I just assumed that's what you do. You buy the resort that they're selling. And, in hindsight, I don't know if I would have done that. I would have maybe tried to buy one of the other resorts or the ones that I would have stayed at more because I almost never stay at Saratoga Springs. And not because it's a bad resort, but it's not my number one choice. So you'll hear, if you do research about the DVC, you'll hear people say buy where you want to stay because you have a booking advantage there. And, this is something I've learned over the years. And most DVC members, after they're in it for a couple of years, there are some things you learn before as you're using it, you start to see what works, what doesn't work for you as a family, what you prefer. But I bought in 2006, Saratoga Springs, and my price per point when I bought was $92. And it's a lot less expensive then than it is now if you're just buying in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that is interesting, guys, because a lot of good stories, a lot of interesting points. And you mentioned points a couple of times, and I'm begging your indulgence here because I don't know if all of our audience members and even Andrew and myself fully appreciate the point system that we use. So right now they're currently selling the point system in Alani and the Riviera Resort. So those are the two resorts, quote unquote, you're buying into that are your home resorts.
And Bob, on top of that, right, the Alani Resort is, of course, in no other than the beautiful Hawaii.
Correct.
And the Riviera Resort is in Orlando in the Walt
It's a nice-looking resort. If we're being completely honest, they have had some changes to the structure of the deals, as it were. And Bill, you mentioned you want to buy where you can or where you like to stay.
Right.
So that's an interesting jumping off point because if Disney is only selling the Riviera Resort or Alani, where am I getting the other points? Where am I buying from another seller?
Well, maybe Eric can explain the numbers a little bit better, but the way I understand it is when you go to sell your you buy an allotment of points, and each point has a dollar value, and the rooms as you rent them for different times of the year, a night stay might be 15 points, or if you're going during Christmas week, that same room might be 30 points. So they add a value to it depending on the room size and what resort it's in. But they also buy points back from people. So let's say you're an owner at the Beach Club Villas and you want to sell your points. Disney has the right to buy those back before you can sell them to someone privately. And what can happen is Disney will then acquire inventory on some of their older resorts. And then they resell them again. So from what I understand, sometimes they have inventory in some of the older resorts. So you may not always have to buy the new resort. Eric, am I right with that?
Yeah, you're totally right. They do buy back some of the older resales, because they retain, when you buy into the DVC, they retain on the resale market the right of first refusal. So I had actually bought, and this is going back to the numbers again a little bit, I was so happy with the numbers a couple of years after we bought initially that we went back and bought some more points at Animal Kingdom Lodge a couple of years later. And we bought them on the resale markets. Basically, if somebody else has points that they're looking to get rid of, want them anymore, they don't use them as much as they used to, they can sell them privately to anybody. And there are forums online and there are websites that are dedicated. So we found somebody who was selling Animal Kingdom Lodge, and they were offering it at a certain price, and we offered a lower price, and we negotiated and, came up with, I forget what the number was, I think it was $78 a point or something that we had offered them that we agreed on. And then once you agree on it, you have to submit the information to Disney. Disney has the right to buy those points from that seller at that same price, and they can just take them back into their own inventory. And from there, they can either use them to sell, as an ordinary, off-the-rack room rate and have people actually just pay for the room, or they can use those to actually resell to new DVC members.
Okay, so that's a very interesting point. So you guys both touched on it, but when Disney buys back, let's say, the resort or the points, and maybe you don't know the answer to this question, but is that something you just have to call up and you'd say, hey, what are the resorts you have in mind or what you have available?
Well, you're going to have what do they call it, like an advisor, or it's basically the salesman.
Okay.
But they have a name for it. Eric, do you remember the name?
I don't remember the name.
It's like your vacation club guide or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, and he's basically your salesman. So when you're going through the process, you could say to him, I really want to stay at the Wilderness Lodge. That's the resort I love, and I want to buy into the Wilderness Lodge. And he'll check the inventory, and they'll be able to tell you, okay, well, you know what? We do have points available at the Wilderness Lodge, and they may be more expensive than what you could get on the resale market. But especially when you buy them through Disney, they come with added value. So there are definitely some things to weigh when you're going through the resale market. And they've recently changed some of the rules, which make it even more complicated because you can't use your points in certain ways. So it's easier to go right through Disney than it is to buy on the resale market, and your points will be more valuable that way, and you'll be able to use them more fully, I would say.
Okay. No, and I think that's a very good point. So. And I want to pull up some numbers here for a second because I'm like Eric and I like seeing the numbers. So I have up on the Disney website. This isn't a resale market. This is the actual Disney, and I'm looking at the Riviera Resort. So for 150 points, and this is just so all the listeners out there can kind of get a ballpark understanding of how much you're investing, right? So for 150 points, and I don't have the breakdown of how many nights that will get me. The purchase price alone is $29,250. And there's closing costs, just like a condo fee or when you buy a house or anything like that, right? So that's about a little over $700. It puts you at roughly $30,000 to buy into the Riviera Resort DVC.
Okay.
So when you finance that, they typically finance it over a 10-year period. They require 10% down, which is roughly $3,000. It comes to $377 per month. So you're going to be paying $377 per month for 10 years. Now, on top of that, which I want to get into, and I want to kind of hear your opinion on this stuff, is think of condo fees, right? You have your monthly fees associated with this. So that's about $103, $104. So now you're looking at, for the Disney Riviera, $400 and let's say $80 per month for 10 years. Right. So just so people out there understand what we're talking about, you're paying $480 per month for 10 years straight. Now, that's a lot of money for people, right? So I guess my point is it's a long-term investment, definitely, right? And I know you guys said a couple things before. These are typically, 50-ish year guaranteed? You own the property for 50 years?
Yep. From the date the resort opens. So if you buy, I bought in 3 years after the resort opened, so I have 47 years left. Like Eric did the same thing. If you buy 10 years after the resort opens, you'll have 40 years left. So it's a 50-year contract. And you buy in, like the resort. And then after that, your points just disappear and they go back into the inventory.
Right. So if you're buying at Riviera now, you're getting 50 years worth. If you're buying at Animal Kingdom right now, you're getting 37 years worth.
Okay. That's interesting.
It makes a big difference as far as calculating exactly how much you're spending overall, because obviously there's a big difference. There's a 13-year difference in how much you're going to be using it.
So that's why you see a fluctuation in the prices when you look at resale versus new, because you're getting a lot longer time span with your property. It's a longer term investment, right?
Right. Yep.
Awesome. So I'm assuming you guys both are just about probably paid off with your upfront cost.
Yeah. There's two ways to do this. So like you said, I financed mine. Okay. And I paid my contract. I bought 210 points. Okay. So every year I have 210 points to use in Walt Disney World. Now I took out the 10-year loan at whatever percentage rate it was, and it ended up like the price if I would have paid cash was $16,000 and change. And over the course of those 10 years with interest, it ended up costing me probably about $25,000. And my annual dues started out in the 700s in 2006, and now they're a little over $1,000, 14 years later. Mm-hmm. But I think the way I looked at it then at the prices I was dealing with is I'm going to get to stay in the nicest resorts at the highest level rooms. And I had to then go look at what the cash price would have cost me to stay in that resort at that price. And it always worked out to be a lot less money using my DVC points. So I always feel like I'm able to stay. I could probably stay in Walt Disney World a lot less if I stayed at the All-Stars or even, French Quarter or some of the moderates.
Yep.
But, I'm always able to stay at the deluxe resorts and at a fraction of what it would have cost.
That made sense.
Yeah, and that's what makes the really big is, when you look at the point value and how much you're spending and how much it's costing, and Bill and I are a little bit of an advantage because we bought in 10 to 15 years ago when the prices were a lot lower than they are now, and they probably will actually go down a little bit in the next couple of years just because what's going on right now with travel and everything. The prices will probably drop. But if you're looking at, so let's say the example that we were talking about before, where you're paying, was it $377 a month for 10 years, that's going to cost you $45,000. That's if you're financing. It's going to cost you $45,000. And you're getting, when you say 200 points or 150 points, that's per year. You have to look at what you're getting over the entire life. So at 150 points per year, you're actually buying 50 years, you're actually buying 7,500 points is what you're getting. And you're spending $45,000 on that. So if I take $45,000 divided by 7,500 points, it's costing me $6 per point is what my cost is for those points. Now, on top of that, like you mentioned, you have your maintenance. Now, maintenance is gonna increase a little bit every year, but your maintenance you have to add to that. And you have to add it now. And just as a little bit of an aside, there are online calculators, but when you use it, it actually skews the numbers really, really high because those online calculators are taking a potential increase of the maintenance over the entire life of the contract and basically averaging that into current values. And you can't really look at it that way. You have to look at what you're currently paying in today's maintenance. So just using Animal Kingdom, and Animal Kingdom's maintenance is a little bit higher than most. Right now, Animal Kingdom's monthly maintenance is about $7. Is about $7 per point. So if you take your $6 per point that you actually spent for the actual points, and you add the $7 per point that you're paying right now during the year, it basically gives you a cost of $13 per point. So every single point that you use is costing you $13. So if you book a vacation and you're looking at your dates and trying to work it out, and a 5-night vacation, is going to cost you 100 points, then take that 100 points, multiply it by the $13, that's costing you $13. So now you can actually look at it apples to apples. You can say, okay, I'm getting a one-bedroom suite at whatever resort that you want to stay at for $1,300 versus it would cost me, $3,000 if I was to actually pay for that.
And I think that's what you guys both said, and I think you guys are both absolutely right. And that's where I think sometimes I get caught up, and the average person gets caught up, where you're not staying at an all-star. You're not staying at a pop. Right. You are staying at a luxury, suite, essentially, right? So 100% true. People need to remember that when they say, well, that's a lot of money. Yeah, but if you went to go book those trips now, it's going to be a lot of money. Right. So 100%.
Right.
Well, yeah, if you're Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Eric.
That's the X factor in all of this, is when you look at the numbers are numbers, and the numbers actually work out in your favor. But the X factor is the vacation experience that you're getting, and you're not cramming your family into a small room on 2 queen beds. You're actually staying at, I stayed 2 summers ago at a 1-bedroom suite in the Grand Floridian. I mean, 10 years ago, I never would have dreamed of doing that. That was not an attainable thing. We did it. We spent a week in the Grand Floridian last year, the 4 of us. And it was an amazing experience, and it cost us, on the average, if you factor the points in the way I calculated them before, it cost us like $250 a night.
Yeah,
and that's the rack rate for a room like that is like $750 a night.
Oh yeah.
So that's a good thing. Now that's an excellent point, and I do have a question about points, and I think Andrew kind of has this question, and I've had the questions bounced off each other a couple of times. Those points you can borrow from a year, you can double up on a year. What's not the shelf life, but what's the expiration in terms of borrowing from a previous year or rolling over into the next? Is it just from 1 year to the next and then 1 year back into the current year? You can't go further back or further forward than that. Is that how we understand it?
Yeah, it's basically like a 3-year span. So what happened was when I bought and they do this a lot when you're first buying, like when a hotel is new, and as an incentive, they'll give you 2 years worth of points. So I bought into Saratoga Springs, and I bought my 210 points, but they also, as like a gift for buying into the DVC, they gave me another 210 points to use. Now, something every DVC member is going to tell you is that you're always borrowing points from the next year. You're in a constant state of needing points because you're always wanting to go. And, unless something happens where you can't go for a few years, if you're the type of person that's going to go every year more than once or at least once, chances are you'll run through your year's worth allotment of points. But if you don't, you can bank them into the following year, or you can borrow them, from the following year also. So if I was making a reservation, let's say, and it was going to cost me 250 points, I only have 210 to use this year, but I have another allotment of 210 coming next year. I can take those extra 40 points from next year's allotment, and then I'll have what I need for this year's reservation. But then next year, I'm now short 40 points. So now I'm starting the year with 170 points. But once my year starts, I can borrow from the following year. So this is what happens.
It's a vicious cycle.
But
I
feel on that same token or question, what if I have 210 points and I say I want to go twice this year? I only want to use 100 points this trip. I can pay the other half.
You can do whatever you want. I mean, you can pay cash, or you can book a room that's less points. So there's a point structure, and it's assigned to, there's studios, 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, villas, grand villas. Some of the places have bungalows. Saratoga Springs has the tree houses. So there's different levels of accommodation. So I know for me, and I'm sure Eric would agree, you want to maximize your points. So I was, when we first started going, we wanted to go 2-3 times a year. So we would get the least expensive accommodation we could find in the DVC resorts, and we would try to go as much as we could. So I would at some points of the year, you might be able to go for a week for under $100 if you stay in a studio at a certain resort. So that's a way to try to like manage your points. You don't use them all the time.
Absolutely. All right. So I know I know we have some questions here that we want to ask specifically. I know we covered a lot of stuff. So I think that's really good background info, right? I think now that we set the stage for what DVC is and kind of the inner words and even a little bit more detail. So almost let's rewind a little bit, and I kind of want to hear almost like your guys' both experiences on the process from the very beginning to the very end, right? So my first question I have for you guys is, or let's say the first question I have for somebody, considering DVC. Once you decide that, yes, I did my research, I want into DVC, what's your approach or options, really? I know we kind of talked about resale a little bit, but I know we talked about laying out the points, but just as a whole, what would be your first steps?
The first step is going to be learning how the system works. Because point maintenance is your point management is your number one priority. The worst thing you could do, and we talked before about borrowing points and banking points, the worst thing you can do is leave points on the table and just end up losing points. So every year you have points that are allotted to you, and if you use them in a year, fine. If you need to borrow points from next year, that's fine. But if you don't use the points that you have within that year, you have to, whatever you have left, let's say you have 200 points and you've only used 120, you have to take those 80 points and bank them to next year. But you have up to a certain date to do it. You have like 5 months before the year is over to do it. If you don't bank those points ahead of time to next year, you lose them. They're gone. You don't get them back. And now that's money. That's just down the drain. And then along the same lines, you have to make sure that you have, if any points you're not using your banking, when you get into your use year, using the points that you have in that year, if you need to borrow from the next year, you have to make sure that you have enough. And it becomes, like a kind of an art. There's an art to actually managing the points and making sure that you're using them properly. And then, like I said before, with assigning a point value to them, a dollar value to them, make sure that you're getting the most out of it. Make sure that you're maximizing the points that you're using to the best benefit. So the very first thing you got to do is learn the system, learn how the points work.
Yeah, and then I would say, after that, once you understand how the system works, you're going to have to actually deal with a guide or a salesman. And the one thing I'll say about Disney, I mean, you've probably heard stories, or maybe you've even done it, where you go to a timeshare selling, and there's this high pressure situation, and they want you to buy right then. They'll give you a free vacation. Disney is not like that at all. It is a very pleasant, easy process. There is zero pressure. You could sit there and talk to them for 4 hours and then get up and walk away, and they're not going to be annoyed. This is the way they operate. It's a classy Disney operation. So it's a very easy process. They make it very smooth, and they'll pick you up at any resort. They really make it very easy for you to buy in. You could do it from home. And, so once you start, getting involved in the process, they're going to offer you, what they're selling. And they're going to explain everything to you. And you have to have some history of the resorts a little bit. You need to do your homework on the actual resorts. You have to see what accommodations they have for your family size. Now, we both have 4-person families. Our wives, and we each have 2 kids. But if you have a bigger family, now I have a friend who has 5 kids, and he wanted to buy into the DVC, but he could not make it work for his size family. It was just way too expensive. He would have to get 2 rooms. He needed an astronomical amount of points to get the accommodations he needed, and it just didn't fit for him. So you have to really make sure that the accommodations that are available are going to fit your family.
And I think that's a great question, Bill. And I think, and I don't want to speak for Bub, but I think that was the same way that I kind of looked at it when I looked into it maybe a couple of years ago, right? So I have 2 kids, like I said, they're 3 and 6. For us, like my older son, they're a little bit older, but for me, a studio type place is okay. Right. So at which point is it, and I'm thinking to the future now when my kid's a little bit older and maybe they want their own little bedroom, that's where I see the big benefit, right? But maybe when you have really young kids, and I don't know, I'm just talking out loud here, I didn't see a huge benefit in it, right? Because like you said, at that point, maybe just go for the cheaper room and at All-Star or even upgrade a little bit to like a French Quarters or something like that,
Well, it depends because, the room physically may be the same size at the All-Stars and a studio at Saratoga or a studio at the Grand Floridian, but you're at the Grand Floridian. I mean, you have access to the pools, the restaurants. You're a quick monorail ride to the Magic Kingdom. So the room itself is going to have nicer furnishings, but physically it may not be a big room, but you get the whole hotel experience with that.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, so that's a lot of good foundational stuff. Let's all pretend, all right, I bought into Boardwalk. I fell into some money. I'm very excited about it. What is my booking window? Now that you guys have sold me on buying, I bought in just now, typed it in, I'm looking to book my next trip. Is the process different when you book the trip with Vacation Club points, or do you go through your real estate manager, whatever you want to refer to him as, or do you just call 1407W Disney and say, hey, I'm vacation member so-and-so, and I want to stay here?
Yes. So you get a DVC, basically member website that you can go to,
Okay.
And that's where you're going to do all your booking. You're going to book everything through there. There are cast members who deal with just DVC, so they'll actually answer the phone. They know the system. They can work your way through it. But that's where you're going to do your booking. You're not going to book through the way you normally would. Everything's going to be done through the DVC system, and it basically comes down to booking in advance as far as there's a difference between your home resort and all the other DVC resorts. So my home resort is Animal Kingdom Lodge. Whatever your home resort is, you can actually book up to 11 months in advance. And the advantage then is I'm pretty much guaranteed a room at Animal Kingdom Lodge as long as I'm booking 11 months in advance, because those rooms aren't going to fill up that fast. If I wait too long, they may, but I've never had a problem. Anytime I've ever tried to book a DVC, the first thing we do, as long as we know we're traveling more than 11 months ahead of time, first thing we do is book that room at Animal Kingdom Lodge. It's locked in. We know we have it. And then whatever happens after that, if we can't get into the other resort that we want to, our fallback is we already have a room at Animal Kingdom Lodge, which is not a bad thing. It's a great place to be.
Yeah.
So then what happens, all of the other DVC resorts, and then we'll say, okay, where do we really want to stay on this trip? And let's say we want to stay at Beach Club. Then what we'll do is, once you get to 7 months before your trip, then you can start booking the other resorts, the ones that aren't your home resort. So basically, you go online and you see what's available at these other resorts, and chances are you're not going to be able to get them, because anyone who has that home resort, everybody for the Beach Club in this example, who is the Beach Club is their home resort, they've already booked 4 months ago, they booked their trip. Mm-hmm. Those rooms are all used up. So then basically you get on a wait list. And I mean, Bill could tell you a little bit more about this because he's really great at managing this stuff as far as the wait lists go. We really have never had a problem, and eventually getting the resort that we want being on the wait list.
There's actually a lot of times where there's a couple of things we should start with, though, first. That you have a use year, okay? And it's not like January to January. There are different use years. They start, I think it's, every quarter? It's like October, January, right? Every 4 months or 3 months, there's a use year.
Every quarter, this is different. Yep.
Right. So when I bought my points originally, my use year was October. So that's when I get my points every year. And that affects when you can book, because I don't get my point allotment every year until October 5th. And on October 5th, I can then use those points for whatever trip I want to book. Now, if I want to book a trip before October 5th, I have no points to use, so I can't make a reservation. So if I typically like to travel for Christmas and I have an October use year, I'm not going to be able to book my Christmas trip 3 months out. It's going to be all sold out. So for me, a spring use year would be much better. I would then be able to use or even a winter use year. So these are like the little details that you may not know.
That's huge,
Yeah, so you have to know when you travel. So I typically travel in the summer with my family. So the October use year works perfectly for us. You know, I get my points every October, and then my 11-month window, whenever that is, September, October, I can usually just book my trip at my own resort if I want, like Eric said. Or when the 7-month window opens up, my points are sitting there waiting for me, and then I can go to book my trip. Now, when I book, I don't typically book at Saratoga and then, at the 7-month window, try to get it. The booking window opens up, I believe, at 8 a.m. on the morning, 7 months back from your trip. And if you get on the computer at 8 a.m., I have never not got the reservation that I wanted. Now, if you wait until 4 o'clock in the afternoon on that day, if it's a popular time of year, you may have a hard time finding exactly what you want. But if you're willing to plan, you can usually get what you want at 7 months. That's why I never stay at Saratoga Springs, because I have access to all of the other resorts.
That's all. So that's awesome, because I didn't know that. I didn't know about that use. So let me ask you this: how does that determine? Is that when you buy into it, or no?
I'm not. I don't remember how I got assigned my use year. Eric, when's your use year?
My use year is as the same as yours, is in October. And honestly, when we bought in, it was basically they told us this is what it is. It's October. Now, when we were buying on the secondary market a few years later into Animal Kingdom also, there are different use years for Animal Kingdom contracts. So it really just depends on the original contract. And I think it may depend on the time of year that you're buying. So we bought originally at Animal Kingdom Lodge in, I would want to say, May. And our use year started in October. So maybe if we were buying in November, our use year may have started in January. It may work that way. So the contracts work basically based on when you originally buy. And then if you're buying, the use year can start at any one of those 4 dates during the year. This goes back to what I was saying earlier about like one of the first things you want to try to do initially is when you get in is figure out how the system works, because it can get very confusing.
Oh, absolutely. That's huge. And just to recap, so what you're saying is the use year is when you get your points are into your bank. You get the deposit.
Right.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
So, all right. So some other questions since we're on this topic is I want to understand what are some major perks, let's say, that come along with the DVC membership, whether it's, park ticket discounts, shop discounts, food, reservations, all these things. What are some perks that come along with the purchase?
It's funny. They've changed over the years. And
Yep.
When I first bought in, valet parking at every resort was included. There was there's discounts and things like that. And I'm trying to remember what some of the other ones were, where you could, all of the pools were open to you in all of the other resorts. So if you were a DVC member, you could pool hop. And a lot of those things have kind of gone away as this has become more popular. But there's discounts too, right, Eric?
Yeah, the perks in the contract when you first buy in, there's a disclaimer in there which basically says that these perks aren't guaranteed, so they can kind of take them away whenever they want. But there are discounts. There are some really good discounts on shopping, dining. Every time I go, and I forget to do it a lot, unfortunately, every time I buy something, I have to remember to ask, do you have a DVC discount? And then in a lot of places, there's a 10% DVC discount on merchandise, on restaurants. There's a DVC discount, which is probably the best one, on annual passes, which definitely is a really great one. Hopefully that one stays. I can't see them taking that one away. But there used to be a really good, there is still a really good discount for DVC on the annual passes.
So
perks in addition to that, go ahead.
No, I have to assume you guys are both annual pass holders, or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
But not all the time. So here's another thing.
The scam. This is beating the system. This is what I like.
Everybody, does things differently. So, for a family of 4, my annual passes with my DVC discount cost me $2,500 almost. Okay, so that's pretty expensive. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So what I like to do is, like I said, I travel in the summer. So I will book a trip, for argument's sake, let's say August 15th. I'll book a 7-day trip. And then the following year, I'll book a trip a week earlier. So I can go on 2 trips on one set of annual passes, if not more. There are times when Eric and I are down there on our own, photographing certain things or doing something other than, but like our family trips, I'll try to maximize the annual passes. And then I'll take a year off with the annual pass and I'll wait. And then I'll buy a new one right before my next trip and then use that one twice again.
That makes sense. No, that's smart. That's really smart.
Well, especially for us because we're not local,
Yeah, you probably wouldn't be DVC member. Oh, that's not true. DVC members you don't have to, you don't have to be local or far. It doesn't matter, I guess. It's about staying on the property.
Yeah.
All right, so I was going to ask you how to maximize your investment, but I think that pretty much sums up maximizing that at the fullest. So, but speaking of that, what do you guys have a recommendation? And I know Eric loves the numbers and stuff like that and runs them all the time, but what would you say is the best way to maximize the DVC benefit? Like you said, is it Is it saving your points for getting a nicer and better room? Is it going for the cheaper end to go more often? Or what would you recommend as the best way to maximize it?
Yeah, that really comes down to personal preference, whatever it is. I know people who, like you said, you could bank your points from one year and borrow from the next year. So I know people who travel once every 3 years and basically use 3 years worth of points on one amazing giant trip. And I know that, I kind of tend to go the other way. We go down there maybe 3 times a year and try to stretch those points out as much as we possibly can, and really end up using up all our points and end up paying for some rooms out of pocket at some point. So that really comes down to how you want to travel. I wouldn't recommend, as far as getting the most out of your investment, using DVC for anything other than Disney World or Disneyland. You can use DVC in Disneyland also. I wouldn't recommend using it anything other than those, because you're really not getting any benefit whatsoever dollars-wise if you're using it for the Disney Cruise Line, or like Adventures by Disney is another program, or even trading those in on the market. You can actually trade those in for like timeshare points through RCI. Dollar for dollar, it doesn't pay to do any of that stuff at all. So really the only thing you want to use your DVC points for is the actual Disney World or Disneyland resorts.
Yeah, and your vacation style is going to change. So you have young kids right now. So when I first started, my kids were 3 and 1. And, we didn't care what the room was like, or, we didn't worry about that kind of stuff. We wanted to be in the parks. We were running around. It was just a place to stay, and we could get to Disney World often. And it almost is a way to like budget your trip. You know what the hotel's going to cost all the time. But over the years, what's happened, our trips have changed. My girls are now teenagers, and they love to sit by the pool also. And, I've gone on trips with just my wife. And, there are times now where we'll get a 1-bedroom so that we can cook in the rooms sometimes. And you have, nicer accommodations, and it's more privacy. You have, as the kids get older, you want a little more privacy, separation. I have 2 daughters. So it's nice to not all 4 of us be bouncing into each other in a single hotel room. Yeah. I can shut the bedroom door when I want to get changed. Your vacations are going to change, and it definitely gives you flexibility to try different things out over the years.
Absolutely.
Yeah, those are excellent points, and you guys have given us more information than I could have ever anticipated. You've already sold me. Like I said, I bought into Boardwalk on my phone while we were having the conversation. Don't tell my wife. She doesn't listen, so she won't know. But we want to have a little fun with you guys now, because you guys are giving us so much good information. You've given us a lot of pros on DVC.
Right.
Give us one solid pro from each of you that would be, for someone like Andrew who's still on the fence, one absolute bottom dollar pro, you have to do it, and then give us one con on why he shouldn't do it, if you can.
Okay. Eric, you go first.
Okay. I'll give you the pro first, and you mentioned the word bottom dollar, so I'll give you $1 as a pro.
All right.
Okay. I've been using points for 9 years now. Okay. My average, as far as the point value that I'm using, my average night stay in Disney World for the last 9 years has been $218 per night.
That's incredible.
The rooms that I'm staying in would have cost me, if I paid for them out of pocket, would have cost me on average $603 per night.
Wow.
So I've been spending 9 years staying in $600 a night rooms in Disney World. I've saved basically now I never would have done this out of pocket. I never would have paid for this out of pocket. But I've stayed in basically $75,000 worth of hotel rooms over the last 9 years and used my points for them. And basically, I'm awesome. Saving, just the savings alone on the value is the value. But if I wouldn't have spent $600 a night and I would have actually paid for a room out of pocket, that still would have cost, and I keep track of this, and I'm a little obsessed about it.
He's the ultimate.
It still would have cost me $291 a night to stay at, a studio room at a less expensive resort. I'm still saving $80 a night over the past 8 years in actual dollars. I've saved $10,000 in actual real money over the last 9 years being in DVC. And on top of that, the benefit on top of that is I'm staying in $600 a night rooms.
That's and Eric, I don't judge, because Bub will tell you right now, we have something on this show that we call the spreadsheet of silliness, because I go off on these tangents and I create these over-needed spreadsheets for everything. When we do top 10s, there's a spreadsheet with formulas that rank stuff that are. I'm crazy. I have a spreadsheet. Me and Bub went to Disney with our families recently, and I sent him. We had everything. I set up a spreadsheet. I said, "Hey, Bub, here's our itinerary plan." He's like, "What are you talking about? We've been to Disney 1,000 times, Drew."
Yeah, that's true.
You know, I said, "Oh yeah, just look at it." He goes, he opens it up. There's 30 tabs on the bottom, each one, everything. I hear you. I love to see that. I'd be doing the same thing. So to hear that dollar amount is awesome to see.
Right.
Why don't we hear one of your pros, and then we'll do cons.
One of the pros is it's going to make you go to Walt Disney World more because you're going to have this investment and you're going to want to use it. And
Yep.
I'm so glad that I bought in when I did, because I don't think I would have forced myself to go as much as I ended up going, because I knew I had these points and I would buy annual passes and I wanted to use it. And the trips that I had, my kids will never forget. I'll never forget it. We made some amazing memories, and so many things in my life that are good now, but the social media that I have, my photography, the books we put out, all that stuff. It's all directly because I bought the DVC and I decided to go to Disney World for my vacations, and they weren't my only vacations, but at least once a year, I was going to Walt Disney World. And for me, that was one of the things that I really was a real pro for us. It forced us to go.
Awesome. All right. And I think if you ask me and Bob, like he said, we'll buy it tomorrow. I think it's the wife sometimes we have to convince. I think that me and Bob talk Disney so much. We do this podcast. We live and breathe Disney. We love it. I think we're starting to let our wives not like it.
That is true.
Well, that can happen. Yeah.
No, I mean, they all love it. Our kids love it. It's just they want to go other places, which you understand. So that's a tough one. But all right, back to Erica on far as one con. I know it's hard. It hurts both of you guys. But what is one con you would have to say about DVC?
The only con I can really take away from it is the time limitation that it puts on you. You can't really do a spur of the moment trip. Because you have so much money invested in it, you want to use your points. As soon as school lets out, let's just go on a long weekend. We'll do 5 days in Disney World. You may not be able to get into any of the resorts, any of the DVC resorts, because you're only, a month or two out at that point. It's a time limitation. You have to plan ahead. You have to plan well in advance and have everything laid out.
Bill, what about you as far as one con, if you had to say?
Okay, so here's my con. It's the exact same thing as my pro. It forces you to go all the time, and it's very expensive. And what happens is, you're saving money on the hotel, but now you're in Disney World 2 or 3 times a year. And I found that, souvenirs, eating out, so all of a sudden, I am going more, but I found that, after a couple of years, I'm like, wow, we're spending a lot in Walt Disney World. Mm-hmm. So you have to go into that knowing that because you're going to Walt Disney World, don't just think about the DVC. You also have to have the budget for everything else. Getting to Florida, if you're not, in Florida, you have to eat while you're down there. You're going to buy souvenirs. You need park passes, which keep getting more and more expensive every year. So these are the other costs that are going to be involved with your DVC membership. You're not just buying a hotel room. Actually, you are. What you're doing is just buying the hotel room, and now everything else you still have to get. So there are a lot of costs that are involved, and so you have to be aware of that.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point that you can't forget. And I'm not going to say a regret, but I think the problem with that is you are tied up into Walt Disney World, which is great, right? We all love it, but then it kind of takes away, like you said, do you have that time and finance to go on other vacations, right? Or you're going to find that time, right? So great answers there.
Yeah.
Bob?
Yeah, no, that's true. So good pros, good cons. We're going to go easy on you this one. Favorite experience, whether it's a personal experience or an experience you had with the cast member. Is there an experience that over the last 15 years or so since you guys have owned, or 10 years, how long it's been, is there a favorite experience that you guys have had? Bill, we'll start with you.
I'm going to give you 2. I can think of one that Eric and I had together when we were down there. and then one with my family. The one where Eric and I were there, it was late at night. We were in the Magic Kingdom, and we were on top of the train station, and we happened to watch a guy propose to his wife just off to our left. And we actually went up to them and we said, "Would you like us to take some pictures of you guys?" We were just there shooting like the down Main Street at night and stuff. And Eric actually took some beautiful images of this couple on, the train platform with the tree out of focus in the background. They were beautiful images, and we emailed them to the couple, and that was a cool night. That was awesome. That was a cool thing. And then once, do you remember? I don't know if you guys remember. Do you remember the Year of a Million Dreams promotion?
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so my wife and I had just come out of dinner at the Cape May Cafe, and we were just walking on the boardwalk there, and a cast member walked up to us out of nowhere, and they were like, "Would you guys like to see Illuminations?" And we're like, "Well, yeah, we're actually going to walk over there and see." She said, "No, come over here. We're going to take you in one of the boats." And they put us on one of those little pontoon boats, the little flat bottom boats. There was a cooler of drinks and some food. It was just the four of us, and they took the boat right under the bridge into the World Showcase Lagoon, and we got to watch Illuminations from there. That was a very
incredible.
Yeah, that was a cool thing.
That's awesome.
I mean, I'm jealous. I'm jealous. I'll be honest. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of that show. I miss it dearly. I did. That's an excellent experience, certainly. Eric, anything that sticks out for you?
Yeah, definitely. I think what Bill said. Both instances allude to other people and interactions in the parks, and really the magic that's there is in not just the cast members who are amazing, but it's the other people who are there sharing these experiences with you. We've had a lot of feedback, a lot of things that we shot over the years photographically, cast members in shows and things like that we've kind of just published online, and then we'll get feedback like, "Oh my God, that's me, can you send me?" And we get a lot of feedback from actual cast members who see themselves in shows, and we get to meet people, and we've met a ton of other photographers. There's a really great community there. So that's a huge part of it, a huge part of the fun that we're having and the interaction. As far as actual stories, actual things that have happened, again, it's the cast members that really make it happen. I remember years ago we had gone to a dinner I think it was at the Grand Floridian, where they have Cinderella and all the other Cinderella characters come out. And my daughters were little. They were maybe 2 and 3 or 2 and 4 years old. Had their Cinderella dresses on. They were so excited. Cinderella came around. They met her. And then Prince Charming started coming around. And my older daughter, for whatever reason, she was 4 years old, got a little freaked out that Prince Charming was coming around. So I took my daughter out. There was a little area outside, just outside the restaurant. There was a bench out there. So I took her out there. We sat down. I tried to console her. She was upset. She was crying. And while we were sitting there, out of one of the backstage cast member areas, a cast member came out with the fairy godmother, who was on her way into the restaurant. And she saw what was going on. The fairy godmother came over and sat down next to my daughter wearing her little Cinderella dress. And she spent about 10 minutes with my daughter, just talking to her totally in character, making her feel better. She had her hold out her hand, and she sprinkled some pixie dust into her hand, and really just made her just turned her entire night around, just made her so happy. We were able to go inside and have a great evening together. It was so nice. And just knowing what this person did and what they were able to do, it's something that, it's I don't want to say magic. We use the word magical too much probably, but it's such a magical experience that we all remember for when they were, little kids. And these things happen every day, all day long in the parks. And it's just an amazing experience that it's just something like that. It's just you never forget it, and it's just the X factor. It's the magical part of buying into Disney or buying into all of that and everything that goes along with it.
Yeah, I just thought of another one that was funny. I was on the Barnstormer once when my kids were little, and that's like a 17-second roller coaster. But we got in it, and my daughters were in front of me, and I was behind them in the last row. And before the train came out, Goofy got into the car right next to me. Awesome. Yeah, so I got to ride the Barnstormer with Goofy. My kids were in front of me, and like Eric's saying, those are the little things that you kids remember.
That's absolutely awesome. So. All right, so one last question I want to ask you guys before we kind of wrap up the DVC portion of this episode is, Bill, what would you say is your favorite resort on Walt Disney property?
This is the question. This is the conversation we have in my house before every trip. We all sit down and we're like, okay, well, where do we want to stay this time? So one of the things that's great is that you have so much choice, and every resort really is a little bit different. So you get a different kind of vibe in each one. And there are times when, like, we want that woodsy, kind of warm feeling of the Wilderness Lodge or the Animal Kingdom Lodge, and we'll go there. And, there's other times in the summer where the Beach Club is where I want to be. It's got that, beachy kind of fun summer atmosphere. And we have a trip booked for July, which I'm not sure is going to happen this year. But what's great about the DVC is, for my $92 a point that I bought, way back when, I was able to book a week at the new Riviera in a one-bedroom, accommodation for, and that's where I'm staying, this time. I get to try a brand new resort in Walt Disney World right after it opens. Mm-hmm. I'm going to pay a fraction of the price of what even new Riviera owners are going to pay, because their price per point was so much more than mine. But I would say my all-time favorite resort, if I had to, pick, you can only go there from now on, probably the Wilderness Lodge.
That's awesome. Well,
Great pick.
That is. If you do end up staying at the Riviera, head on over to Caribbean Beach and go to Sebastian's Bistro. Love the place.
Okay. That's one resort I've never actually even stepped foot on. It's probably the only one, but I've never been there.
It's huge. It's cool, though. I actually stayed there recently last year. But Sebastian's is a great restaurant. Go there for dinner one night. You won't be disappointed.
Okay. Check it out.
All right, Art, same question for you. Favorite resort?
Hands down, without a question, Wilderness Lodge.
Wow.
Yeah, these guys are all right. These guys are all right. My kind of guys. Excellent. Yeah. I am torn myself between Wilderness Lodge and Animal Kingdom Lodge. I like both of them for different reasons, but Wilderness Lodge, just the Carnival Pacific room itself, you guys must have a field day there taking pictures of the Wilderness Lodge.
It's the best lobby to take pictures of.
Yeah, beautiful resort. Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, I don't know if you've ever done this. I know I've done it. Have you ever sat in those beautiful, like, mission-style chairs right in the lobby and just watch people's faces as they come in that door?
Yeah.
And they look up and their mouths drop open, and it's just like, wow. It's just one of those places, no matter how many times you walk in there, you just forget how amazing that lobby is.
Yeah, it is. It's well done. It's nice.
Well,
Andrew, what's your favorite Disney resort?
I'm going to have to say the Polynesian. I'm a huge Polynesian fan. Unfortunately, I've never stayed, unfortunately. I need to, but my favorite place to visit and walk around and just do some things.
See, now that's a great resort for the DVC, because it's a little bit different, because they only have studios and the bungalows. So they took a couple of the longhouses, turned them into DVC rooms, but they're nice rooms, and what they have is like a double bathroom in there. So if, like, for me, they have a full bathroom and then another bathroom that has a shower and a sink in it, and that hotel room works perfectly for my family with two teenage daughters. They have their own bathroom, and so that resort, and the point structure is a lot less. So you can stay there, and it's a nice resort. So I would agree. That's a really nice one to stay at also.
Yeah, absolutely. So before we wrap up DVC, move over to our Random House of Mouse with you guys. I mean, any final words or any final things that we haven't maybe covered that you guys wanted to talk about, or you think we talked about it all?
One thing I want to mention is, DVC, it's, I guess, considered a timeshare, but it's really not a timeshare in a conventional sense. A lot of people are afraid of getting stuck in a timeshare. You hear a lot about that. I know the market's changed a little bit. The point value is higher right now. They're selling them for a higher value. But right now, 9 years into my contract, I could actually sell my DVC points for more than I actually paid for them. No. And, true. There always is going to be a market. There's always going to be a resale market, even if it's years down the line, for being able to get out of this contract. You're not stuck in it forever. There's always going to be a market for it. And on top of that, the other thing to consider is that the point value is always the same. So as the actual room rates increase year after year after year, a week at the beach club might cost me 120 points this year. 30 years from now, a week at the beach club is going to cost me 130 points. That's locked in. That depending on the time of year that you go, it varies a little bit, but that's locked in. And now my cost is going to be a little bit more because my maintenance goes up a little bit, but it's not going to increase at the same rate that the rooms are increasing.
No, it's all relative.
That's a great point. You're locking in your rates. That's a great.
Guys, I think you've started to make a believer out of Andrew here.
Hey, I'm a numbers guy, as Bub knows. Eric's numbers sold me. His spreadsheet of silliness is something I'm going to have to look into.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
you have to use it. You definitely have to use it. That's the thing. You have to be able to plan well in advance, and it's something you have to use. You can't just let it sit there because then you're not getting the value out of it.
100%. I agree with that. So you guys aren't done yet. We're not letting you off the hook yet. We have some more stuff to talk about, but we want to thank you guys so much for sharing all of your DVC personal experiences, your personal knowledge, and overall just great stuff. So, Bob, any last DVC comments before we move on?
No, man, that was it was. I'll tell you what, and you guys probably did a better job in the hour we've been talking about it than I've been able to do or find myself, or even if I get the video or the book they used to give you. And I've done the tour before, the Saratoga Experience. This was on our honeymoon 10 years ago almost. Me and my wife went to the tour and we did the fast passes. They go, 3 extra fast passes, and we were kids at the time. We just bought a house, so it clearly didn't work out for us at that point.
You just wanted the free pretzels.
Yeah, but I will tell you, in the hour that I've sat here and talked to you guys tonight, I will tell you you've done a better job of explaining certain things that I don't know that they explain. I don't want to say fully. I just don't know that it's as clearly and as conversational as you guys made it. And I think people get put off by the technical aspect of what you're actually doing, because it is a real estate investment at the end of the day. I've talked to Andrew all weekend about it, and we were back and forth texting and saying, it's pretty much buying a vacation home at the greatest vacation destination in the world. So it's obviously not going to be cheap to do, but like you guys said, and I got to tell you, Eric, that last bit of math you did there with the whole the points are the points, as it were. The way the rack rates work at Disney right now, you're right. The points are the points. That's it, and that's where you really see the savings. And I do thank you guys for coming on and giving kind of a real sense of what it would be for people, because I think a lot of people get put off by numbers. Eric and Andrew, you guys obviously love numbers. You guys, it's your thing, but people will look at the numbers and say, oh my God, I can't make that work. And if we got one person to think about it, I think we've done our job here tonight, and at least because I know a lot of people are scared by the topic, and that's something that you guys, I thought, did an excellent job with tonight, was kind of giving it an everyman approach and trying to break it down. So
well, I think people are a little skeptical because you are being sold something. So you're afraid, like Eric said at the beginning, and you feel like, all right, I got to have my guard up here. They want to sell me something and they're going to make money on it. But I mean, as Eric broke down so beautifully the numbers, you can see it definitely works, but you have to use it. And there are some caveats where it may not work for you. So you have to know how you vacation, when you vacation, and just see if it fits.
And make no mistake, Disney is making money on this too.
Yes, they are.
It's a win-win. It's a win-win for the guests and for Disney.
It is.
Disney's making money, but you're not spending as much as you would be if you're going on the vacation anyway.
Yep, right. So you're having a better accommodation. That's really what it is. You could still go for less money, but you're getting a top-notch experience for a much less expensive price.
Couldn't have said it better. Absolutely. So you guys fit right in with us. Absolutely. But let's head on over and talk about another passion that you guys have that drive you to Disney World so much. So let's head on over to the Random House of Mouse.
Knocking at the House of Mouse. We're all knocking at the House of Mouse.
Yes, the Random House of Mouse is back, and it is presented today by Disney Image Makers and DizCase. And you'll understand what we're talking about in a second. But first, a little bit about Disney World. I don't know if we've ever covered this before on this show, but Disney World is a place of senses. All 5 are engaged from the moment you set foot on property, from the sounds of the train whistle at Magic Kingdom, to the smells of the food at World Showcase Pavilions at Epcot, to the tactile exhibits at Animal Kingdom, to the taste of the beignets at Port Orleans, and most importantly, the visuals at Disney are what really set it apart. And the 2 gentlemen that we have just spoken with extensively with Disney Vacation Club that we have with us tonight have over a library of 8,500 pictures and images on their Facebook group, the Disney Image Makers. And I will tell you, they are absolutely marvelous photos. Every photo they have hits all 5 of those senses that we just talked about. They've managed to capture the beauty and essence of every facet of the property. They are, of course, Eric and Bill, they are the Disney Image Makers. Guys, welcome to our pretty much encore for the show tonight. This is the Random House of Mouse. Let's talk a little bit at first about what Disney Image Makers is, what you guys are, who you guys are, because we introduced you on the show as Disney Vacation Club members, but you guys are much more than that. I don't want to say you make a living off of the pictures in the Diz case, but it's certainly a side hustle if it's nothing else. A little bit about the Disney Image Makers.
Well, I mean, Eric and I first are friends. We live about a mile away from each other, and we both have daughters that are the exact same age. So we met through the girls interacting at school, pretty much. Okay. So that's how we met, and we got it. Eric has been a photographer for a long time, and I was starting to dabble in photography. This is going back 10 years or more now. And, I basically wouldn't leave him alone about photography. I kept hassling him like, well, how do you do this? How do you do that? And, we both realized that both of our families were going to Disney a lot, and we had that in common. So it became like a real common ground, the photography and the Disney aspect of our lives.
Yeah, all right. Excellent. Eric, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, so we got to a point where we were looking at each other saying, what do we do with all these images that we have? And, 80% of our images were from Disney World because we spent so much time there and photographing there. And we said, why don't we let's just share them online? Because, there are Facebook pages, there are people who share Disney images and things online. So we set it up about 6 years ago.
Well, actually, Eric, what we did? Remember, we started shooting for a Walt Disney World magazine. And that's how we kind of got into the social media stuff. We were one of the photographers at WDW magazine first, and then that's how we kind of got into the world of Disney photography and all of that. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay. So then through that, we got a pretty big following that we accumulated on Facebook. Then we started on Instagram right after that. And we really found that, it was a great community of photographers that we met. And then, meeting just other Disney fans who interact with us really, for years now up to today, who interact with us online, who, look forward to seeing our images and look forward to the little anecdotes that we add to our pictures sometimes and the stories that we tell. And it's become a really great way to be able to, share what we love, to grow our photography, because Disney is like, if you're a photographer, if you're starting to get into this stuff, Disney is boot camp for photography. It's every different type of photography in the world, any different situations, different settings. So we really encourage people to get into it that way. And, we've kind of made this social media presence with ourselves, being able to interact with Disney fans, other photographers, and it's really been fun. The other side stuff that we're doing is kind of different. Everything, the core of what we're doing, is just sharing images on social media.
Yeah.
So you guys.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No. Go ahead. I was
going to say, Disney is an emotional place, and we're real Disney fans, and I think that comes across. And when you can bring somebody back to that time that they were going through Pirates of the Caribbean for the first time, and their kids saw Jack Sparrow, and you have a picture of Jack Sparrow, or the first time they saw Happily Ever After, and the fireworks, and it triggers emotional responses, these images, and that's why there's I think such a big community around the Disney photography, because we each, if you're lucky, you get to go once a year maybe, or for some people it's once a lifetime or whatever. So these images bring them back to that special time that they were there, and it's it really strikes a chord with people.
And you know what I love really quick, Bob, sorry not to interrupt, but you guys kind of made me think of it and hit it on the head there, is that images and photography is so different and tells such a different story than video, right? A lot of people today are, let me do the videos and YouTube and all these trackers, and I think that photography can tell such a different story in a different way, in a good way, right? It leaves a little bit more imagination and the visual than what just a video does.
Yeah, it's the responsibility of the photographer really to convey that what they're trying to convey. And it's great before that you mentioned the five senses, because that's really what it's all about. We're operating in a 2D, two-dimensional static medium, but we're trying to convey what we're feeling in that moment. When we're standing on a crowded main street for 2 hours waiting for the fireworks show, and we get a picture of the castle with this amazing display of fireworks behind it, we want to share the fact that we're surrounded by all these people who are enjoying this. So all the people who have their cell phones up taking video and sharing in this, we want them in the picture because that's all part of the experience. And so when somebody looks at that and they see that, even if they don't realize they're seeing it, their brain realizes it. They realize that that's what it felt like to be there in that moment. And that's kind of what, the burden that we have and the fun of it is actually conveying the emotions that we're feeling in the moment and putting that on a screen for somebody to share.
And not even just those big, huge moments like a fireworks shot. Sometimes there'll be a picture of, a small piece of a pavilion in Epcot, and somebody will send us a message and say, "Oh my God, that's when my husband proposed to me." Or, we'll take a picture of I don't know, a place where you get something to eat, and they're like, "Oh, that's my favorite place," or "Oh my God, I love Via Napoli for the pizza," or maybe one of the street performers, or it could be anything.
Yeah, you're talking about Bub right now. Everything you just said. I think that's Bub's messaging you.
Yeah, we all have our own favorite things, and over the years, I think we try to just share all the stuff that we love, and there's so many other people out there that identify with it just like we do.
Absolutely.
So you guys talk about a sense of community with other photographers and stuff. So is it safe to assume it's not a Disney Fight Club out there for photographers?
Not in our world. It's not. I mean,
that's disappointing. No, that's what I hope for.
I mean, we've always shared other guys' work, and not just guys, women, whoever. I mean, any other photographers. It's a big community. We learn from each other. We compliment each other's images. It's a great. I love when an image pops up and it like stops me in my feed. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh my God, look at this. I gotta, you have to comment on something like that. Or sometimes I'll just grab it and share it on our page and say, check this out. It's great to do that.
Yeah, so that's actually funny because Eric had mentioned about the way pictures speak to people, and it's great that you guys are able to acknowledge that you guys take a certain picture and say, this is what we see, and you have maybe a different, a photographer next to you or a couple feet over from you that's taking that picture from a different angle, and you see that and say, it's just, and like we said in the intro with the senses, I feel like photography is so subjective to a certain eye that people have. And when you mention people on their cell phones, and I don't want to have you guys, you guys aren't taking these pictures with cell phones. You're using tripods, legit gear here.
Yep.
What are you guys using for the gear? And do you? I don't want to. Would you prefer that people were more in the moment and let you guys handle the pictures? Because I know for me, a lot of it is when you spend so much time behind a camera and you're filming a parade or you're filming Happily Ever After, not you guys, but on your cell phone, it's a great memory to have. But for me, with my kids being 7 and 3, I'd rather be looking at them and seeing how they're reacting to it. Do you guys almost wish, hey, you guys are going to take the pictures for people, you guys enjoy what you're watching here, be in the moment more? Is that something that ever comes into you guys when you see that, or no, do you not feel that way per se, I guess? Tough question.
It's a great question, and yeah, we do see that. You do sometimes see people who are just kind of all they're doing is looking at what's going on through the screen on their phone, and that goes back to what we're doing also, because we have to tell ourselves the same things. I recommend when I'm talking about how to shoot, I'll do a whole video about how to shoot in the Haunted Mansion. And one of my big recommendations is every once in a while, put your camera away and just write it and experience it. Because what you're trying to tell, the story you're trying to tell, the emotions that you're trying to tell are what you're experiencing. And if you're not just sitting there taking it all in, experiencing it, and you're trying to fumble around with your camera and get shots and stuff, you're not really experiencing the way you're supposed to be experiencing it. So yeah, it is a great thing to see people just kind of put that stuff down. But at the same time, I want people to really do whatever they want. Whatever they're going to get out of Disney is what they're going to do. So I'll even sometimes, when I'm in the park, sometimes I'll have, I'm a Canon shooter, so some of my lenses are those big white lenses that really kind of stick out. And I'll notice sometimes when I'm in a park and I take that out, if I'm trying to get a position in a parade or something, like people will actually kind of like get out of my way, and I don't want that to happen. I don't want to, people, you enjoy yourself, I'll get out of your way. Right. And to kind of step back and let you enjoy it your way, whether you want to just sit there and watch it or whether you want to take out your cell phone and record it, do it your way. Because, especially kids these days, I don't want to sound too old and say kids these days.
You're old.
But so much of what they do, so much of their enjoyment and thing comes with sharing it with, TikTok or Snapchat or whatever it is that they're using.
It's an instant gratification thing.
Right.
Absolutely.
They're actually enjoying it. And we look at that saying like, put that thing away. But that's what they're getting out of it. They're really enjoying doing that.
Yeah. And speaking of that, Eric, I mean, I got to ask, have you had any fun stories or interesting stories, let's say, where you are trying to photograph something on a ride or a parade where, people get a little angry, hey, what are you doing? You're in my view, or this or that type thing, or no?
Not really with guests or anything. Never had a problem with that, or cast members or anything. Really, everybody's been really, courteous, and a few sideways looks that you get sometimes. But like I said, I try to stay out of people's way. We try to be very, very conscientious of the other guests. We try to be really conscientious of security because they have a job to do. It's a really hard job to do, especially at the end of the night when they're trying to empty the park out. Really be conscientious of what other people are trying to do. And, let them do their job. Let the other guests enjoy themselves. Let cast members do their job. And, if you can't get the shot that you're trying to get right now, then you can't get it. You come back and do it another time or don't get it. But, let everybody else have their enjoyment, whatever way that is.
Yeah, I think, part of the fun for us is getting the shot without any kind of special access or any, anything. It's a challenge, and that's why Walt Disney World is so challenging photographically is, you have, with weather and you have just lighting situations to deal with, but you're also dealing with thousands of people. And over the years, we've learned to incorporate them into our images, or maybe make them look like they're blurred out and use motion. And it's a really fun way to shoot. But and I'm sure Eric's going to agree with this, sometimes we get, especially when you're with your family, it can be a little too much. And we have to sometimes I have to get that look from my wife, like, okay, I got to put the camera down now, and I've learned that over the years. And what we started to do is the two of us would go down without the families and go on photography trips. And we would just go there. And there have been days where the two of us have been in the Magic Kingdom for 15, 16 hours and not gone on an attraction, and we're literally just photographing things and taking it in. And, it's a totally different way to experience Walt Disney World. And it makes it interesting for, especially a place that we've been to now so often, that it added a new element for us of the photography.
Okay. All right, good stuff. So let's stay with the photography for a second. You guys actually answered the special access question, which was actually one that I actually did have, thoughts on that. Like, did you guys have access? But it's cool to know you guys just out there, just living your life, taking your trips. I like it.
That's it.
I did notice on the Facebook page, you guys have some breathtaking shots, to be perfectly honest, and people throw superlatives around an awful lot with things, but I will tell you there were there were three, believe it or not, that stuck out to me, and it leads kind of to a question that me and Andrew have been wondering since we started looking. So one, I believe that I did show Eric before we started the Seven Seas Lagoon picture from the boat launch from across Seven Seas Lagoon of the fireworks at Magic Kingdom. You guys were, I think, at the TTC boat launch. There's actually another one at All Star Sports that is just, it's of the football field in the sports section. That's a great photo. It's just the way it captured the light was impressive to me. And then there's one, and I'll actually pull it up. I have it saved to show you guys. There's one here that I think it's a long exposure shot. I don't know if you guys can see that there.
Oh, yeah.
Where you guys took that from the train station.
That's one of my favorites.
And you caught the PhotoPass photographer taking the picture in front of the castle. So
you don't know how happy that makes me that that's a picture that stuck out to you, because that is probably, that might be one of my favorite pictures that I've ever taken in Walt Disney World. I love that picture.
I will tell you it's an excellent photo. I personally, I have an iPhone 8 Plus. That's what I take my pictures with. My wife has the Max, whatever the hell iPhone it is, and they take great pictures. They really do. Some of these, Timmy, there's an electrical parade one here that you guys, and I, believe it or not, pulled that one as well because I was just completely blown away with the colors and the trail there. Are you guys doing a lot of post-edit work with this? Because you guys are clearly professionals. It's not like it's just me shooting a picture and I took a picture of a wall and hope for the best. But how much work goes into when you guys go to the parks, take these pictures, the editing process after? Is there a ton of editing, or is this pretty much, this is just the lens choice and the way the long exposures? Well, what's the big markup there?
It's a little of both.
Yeah.
Right, Eric?
It's the magic behind the scenes.
Yeah. No, the trick is to get as much done in camera as possible, because we'll shoot, thousands and thousands of images, especially if we're on a photo trip. And to spend time editing, you don't want to. You want to be able to produce as many images as you can.
Absolutely.
And so the trick is to do as much as you can. Really, most of the editing that we do revolves around fixing colors and fixing some of the, the contrast and lighting and things like that. We don't Photoshop images. We don't add things in or take things out really and create anything that's not really there. It's all about trying to create, just trying to capture what's there in the moment.
Yeah, like the two images that you just showed us, that light trail picture of the castle, that's all done in the camera. I might have added a little saturation to the colors, but literally that might have been a less than 1 minute edit as far as that. That's a long exposure on a tripod, and that's the electric light parade coming in front of me, one of the floats, and it captures all the movement. The other image, there was a little bit of editing in there. That one, there was a little bit of just maneuvering colors and things like that, but that was an actual image. Everybody was moving except for those three people, and I caught that, and it was cool. Yeah, it was, and I did some enhancing with like the light around those people, like some of the colors, but just to kind of like highlight them. But I would say for the most part, like Eric said, you want to do as much as you can in the camera, and that's the challenge also, is to get it with the camera. But there are digital artists out there that do amazing work. I mean, they can put different skies into images, and they make it look amazing. But to me, that's it's photography, but it's also something else. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And if you don't mind me asking, what software do you guys use?
We both use Adobe Lightroom.
Okay.
As our software.
Nice.
Yeah, we don't use and I would say on average, most of our images are edited in less than 2 minutes each. I mean, it's not.
You can tell.
It's not spending a ton of time editing. So it's it's not. We have professional gear. That's where we use good cameras, like pro level cameras, lenses, and we shoot on tripods a lot. But that's pretty much it.
Awesome.
That's great, 'cause I'll tell you, the pictures don't look overly edited. It was just a question that we had. Some of these shots are really incredible. Like I said, the one at All Star Sports, I don't know why because I saw it and said it's not a resort that you necessarily think of in terms of pictures you're going to take, but it's a fun picture. It really kind of encompasses what All Star Sports is, and I got to tell you, a question, you don't want to answer it, that's cool. I'm okay with it. We have an open door policy here. You don't want to answer the question, you don't have to worry about it. Do you guys ever send them to Disney and say, hey, this is our work? Because some of the stuff that you guys are doing on this site, out of this world.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, Eric, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, we never, as far as the photographs and stuff that we do, we never really sent anything to Disney. We did the Disney coffee table book, maybe I guess 4 years or so ago. That once we had a couple of prototypes published, we had sent them a copy just to see, what they wanted to do, and we didn't really get much feedback from them at all, that they wanted to get involved. But we've been very upfront about, sharing. They've asked to share some of our photos, in Instagram, a couple times along the way. There's a ton of guys, and I say guys, I mean, there's a ton of photographers out there who are, basically kind of doing, plus or minus a little bit the same kind of stuff as us, which is great, but there's just a lot of it out there. So I think we talked a little bit before about special access, which we don't have, which in some instances would be great. I'd love to be able to walk through the Haunted Mansion, with a tripod after hours, but at the same time, I don't really want special access. We really kind of want to be, the challenge is to be able to get photographs, in the situation that all of the other guests are. So as amazing as it would be to do something like that, the fun of it becomes the challenge.
But I think it brings more authenticity to your photos. I think it not that anybody could take the pictures you're taking, but at the end of the day, I don't have the equipment you guys have or necessarily the eye to do what you guys do, but you guys are the everyman. You can get out there and people can take those shots from where you're shooting from. And I think that brings a certain level of camaraderie or if it's authenticity to the photos. And that's what I mean, the photos themselves. Some of the Splash Mountain stuff, my favorite ride is Splash Mountain. Some of the stuff with the sun and stuff, I mean, you guys have a real eye for that stuff, and it's excellent stuff to see. I can't recommend the Facebook page enough. But that's not all you guys do, because you guys are men that wear many hats. Okay? So the Diz Case business, that's DIZ Case, CASE. Guys, what was the idea behind Diz Case?
Well, I mean, when we, I guess, I don't know, when did we do the first book? 2015?
Yeah.
I think, all right, so in 2015, we were working on Walt Disney World magazine, and one of the writers had an idea about doing a coffee table book. So she contacted us, and we actually met her in Walt Disney World. We were there, and she asked us, she said, would you guys be interested I have this idea about doing a coffee table book. So we said, sure. And we put together two, hardbound coffee table books about Walt Disney World and then about Disneyland. And that experience of creating something and putting our images on it was great. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of fun. And, when we were done with the books, we've always wanted to try something else. So we thought, a phone case is kind of like a blank canvas, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so
and there's a lot of things that you can add, because there's, people want to be able to kind of show their Disney side in a lot of cases. And, there are a lot of Disney phone cases that they make, and they have characters on them and things like that that are obviously Disney. But I think the spark of this whole thing was to start creating things like this, phone cases where you can kind of add things like patterns and elements and details that were, to a Disney fan, are obviously Disney, but also look nice as a phone case.
Yeah, that's what we did. We sat down and we actually made a prototype of a phone case. We took a shot that Eric took of Spaceship Earth, just put a close-up of the pattern of Spaceship Earth and put it on the case, and it turned out beautifully. And we're like, wow, this might be something that people would really like. So, we set out to find a manufacturer and, go through all the processes of starting a business and trying to figure all that out. But the end result is, we have a website that you can actually build your own phone case, and we set up galleries of all different kinds of images and, a lot of different things.
And I have to say, that website is top notch. It really is. I'm not just saying that. It's super easy to use, and it works. It's functional, and you can see what you're putting on there, what it looks like. It's very well done.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I highly recommend the close-up of the mural at Spaceship Earth. That is a sweet photo. It is funny though, because you guys have all sorts. You have the Instagram walls there. You have a ton of the stuff from World Showcase. Some of those are absolutely stunning pictures that go on the phone case. Just beautiful, beautiful things. So obviously, we know that Disney does the standard snap-on at the DTech place, and they do the OtterBox style a little bit tougher. How do your cases, in your opinion, manufacturing compare-wise? I know you had the matte finishes and the gloss finish, which I think is pretty self-explanatory. You do have the folio cases on there, and you do have the snap-on and the tougher version of it. Do you guys, in terms of quality, you think they hold up? You like the quality of them?
Oh, sure. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've been using a case on my phone for, ever since we started this. My family has them on theirs. Yeah. I drop my phone all the time. Bill's got one right there.
Like this one, is it one of the tough cases? It's the bioluminescence ground of Pandora.
Yeah. Yes. Yep.
So I put that on my case.
Yeah, we beat these things up all the time. The cases really hold up great, and that was really the number one important thing for us, was that we're actually selling a product that has the durability to it of a phone case, but then can be aesthetically pleasing in Disney.
Yeah, with the cases, there were a lot of options when we were looking at cases. Now, there are case companies that are based out of China that they can be delivered, and takes 2 weeks for them to come, and they're a little cheaper. And we actually we found an American company. These are all printed in Wisconsin, and they are guaranteed for life. So if something happens to the printing or the case breaks or whatever, just let us know. We'll send you out a new one. And we're really happy with the quality. I mean, the folio case has got like a pebbled finish to it. It turned out really nice. And we both have been using, as well as our kids and our families, the tough cases. And you know how teenagers are with their phones, and they haven't broken them yet, so that's a good thing. So they're really high quality. We've been super happy with how they've turned out.
Excellent. So I don't know why anybody would want to, but I can use my own pictures if I'd like, but I would highly recommend probably using the pictures these guys have there, because I don't know why you would need anything else unless you wanted to, have a picture of your dog on your phone case, which is none of my business if that's the case. But just so we know, I can do a special order type thing. I can upload my photo to the site as well, correct?
Yeah. And you could also, if you have something in mind, if you have a favorite attraction, a favorite resort, something, a detail, a favorite thing, we have, other than the hundreds of images that we have on the Discase site, we have thousands of images that aren't there. Yeah. And chances are we have what you're looking for. And if we don't, you know what? Next time we go down there, we're going to get it for you.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And
that's excellent.
As far as putting like people's own images. So basically, this is a blank canvas for a phone case. So, we've put our images there, but maybe, I don't know, maybe you have a picture of your kid with a character that just, it was just one of those moments, and you would love to have that on your phone case. So we have the ability where you can just upload that image right to the site builder, the case builder, and you can preview it on that's one of the things that we really liked about this company is their case builder. They actually let you have a 3D preview of it where you can spin it around and it looks exactly the way the case is going to come. So you know exactly what you're getting before you hit the buy, place the order button. So it's great. So you could put anything you want on there. It could be your Disney photos, could be your family photos, whatever it is.
Awesome.
Excellent. So if it's actually okay with the two of you, I know we did, that's kind of disingenuous of me. We already talked to them about doing this way. Andrew and myself and Tim and Jordana aren't here with us tonight, but the other two Disney guys would actually like to extend to the Ohana members that listen to this episode to like this post when we post it on the Ohana page. That will have the episode link in it. And we will get in touch with us. If you win, we're going to give away one free case from the Discase, from the Disney Image Makers. And we are going to do that. So you have until, next Sunday night to enter. That is like the post that this episode has on the Ohana page. And Andrew will pull them from his hat on next Monday night. And we will announce the winner. And we'll get in touch with you guys and give you the information on how to go about that. So please let us know and like the page. Again, they are Bill and Eric of the Disney Image Makers, DizCase, and DVC members, because that's the whole point of the episode tonight. And guys, where can our listeners find you other than, obviously DizCase and the Facebook page, but Instagram? Do you guys have Twitter or books or anything like that you guys want to push to these guys, or the YouTube channel? I know you guys are big on the YouTube channel right now too. So
yeah, so we're on Facebook and Instagram as Disney Image Makers.
Okay.
We're on YouTube as Disney Image Makers, which has a lot of great Disney content, but is more geared towards photographers and tutorial things like that. Obviously, DizCase.com, which we just talked about. And our books are currently out of print, both of our books, which is Capturing the Magic. One is Disney World, one is Disneyland. They both out of print, but go online, see if you can find them. They're selling at Amazon, secondhand. You can find them on eBay. It was a lot of fun doing it. We sold them out, fairly quickly. So they're still out there, but they're currently out of print.
Sad to hear.
Excellent. So, yeah, I think, again, I personally, myself, have had a blast talking to you guys.
It was great. You had a good time.
You guys made DVC almost accessible to an average guy like me. And a lot of good stuff. Again, I cannot stress enough to our listeners how amazing these photos are. Please go out and check them out at Disney Image Makers on your preferred social media. Andrew, that's all I have. Anything from you, bud?
Nope. Thank you so much, Eric and Bill. And everyone, please make sure you head over onto their pages and give them a follow for all of that amazing stuff. But that is going to wrap up this week's episode of the Disney Vacation Club. So if you have any feedback, questions, or comments, as always, please email us at thedisneyguys@gmail.com. And always remember to reach out to Jordana Izzo from the Disney Guys Uncensored and Travelmation, who is an authorized Disney Invitation planner. She's now earmarked platinum status with Disney Destinations. She can be contacted at jordanaizo@travelmation.net. As always, we can be found on every single social media platform out there, I think. Jordana would know better than I would. But if you want to win some super cool phone cases from these guys, make sure you go to Facebook and you have to join our Ohana Facebook group. That is where all the cool and amazing stuff happens. We share all of our amazing content with you guys, and as well as to head over to YouTube, because we have some amazing content that we've been putting out there. Also, if you want to check out any of our super cool merchandise, head over to Redbubble where you can get some stuff. And as always, we ask you if you want to support us $1 or $2 or up to $30. We all have special perks that we can give you that cater towards your needs. So head over to Patreon and sign up for that. And as always, we hope you enjoyed the show, and thanks for listening to the Disney Guys Uncensored.
May Walt Disney World bring joy and inspiration and new knowledge to all who come to this happy place.